Argument that Putin's trying to test this administration yet again. What comes of this meeting, Senator?
Well, I think much more important than the meeting is what we, the United States, actually do in the area. And I suggest that we actually send ships to the Black Sea to send a message to Ukraine that we are with them, and to send a message to Russia that international law must be followed. Look, Vladimir Putin is a show, not tell guy. You can tell him anything you want. He respects power and he respects geography. And what he's doing in the area of Ukraine is actually a fight for more geography. He takes it any time he tries to do it. He is testing the United States and the resolve of NATO.
Yeah, Senator, thank you for your time. We got some breaking news. Sorry to cut you off. Hope you come
Thanks for
back,
having
okay?
me.
John Barrasso,
Sure
thank you, the senator from Wyoming.
Meanwhile, this just coming in from the Associated Press, Michael Cohen, President Trump's ex-lawyer, is making a surprise court appearance this morning before a federal judge in New York. According to some of the latest reports on this right now, Bill, Michael Cohen made a surprise appearance in a Manhattan courtroom to plead guilty to a new criminal charge, which of course would be the latest turn in the special counsel's investigation of the president and his inner circle. So we're just starting to get reports on this now.
Just wonder how this case is changing if the surprise appearance is happening now, Sandra, because 2 weeks from now, Cohen, age 52, was scheduled to be in court to be sentenced for an earlier guilty plea. And that case included bank and tax crimes and was brought by federal prosecutors here in New York City. This is the district court here in New York City, where a lot of people, including Alan Dershowitz, think the real legal action is. So we'll see what happens here with Cohen showing up today.
We will likely have much more on this coming up for you in a few moments. Stay tuned. Keep it right here on America's Newsroom. We'll be right back.
Well, I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see.
25 past the hour now. I want to get back to this breaking news. We're getting word we got a producer inside the courtroom in Lower Manhattan where Michael Cohen has made a surprise appearance. According to the Associated Press, there's one line crossing right now, pleading guilty to lying to Congress, according to the AP, about a Trump real estate project in Russia. Now, remember, Cohen, the former lawyer for the president, pleaded guilty back in August to breaking some sort of campaign finance laws, made a surprise appearance earlier today. This about 2 weeks prior to a scheduled appearance. He was expected in court on the 12th of December for a sentencing part of his case. So how that's impacted based on today's appearance, we do not know, but the case then involved bank and tax crimes brought by federal prosecutors here in New York City. This goes with all the news that's surrounding Paul Manafort. When the Mueller team came out, according to reports, and accused Manafort of lying. At the same time, there was an accusation that Manafort had met with Julian Assange in London, and Manafort's team came out and blasted that, said it was not true at all. So this is going back and forth at a time when Rudy Giuliani confirmed with John Roberts and others that apparently at the White House that the lawyer for Paul Manafort has been communicating with Rudy Giuliani, and some legal experts suggest that's not unusual. But to get an idea as to where Bob Mueller is going in his investigation, that'd be very valuable legal information for the president's team.
And remember, Michael Cohen's promised to put family and country first by cooperating with prosecutors. So a lot we don't know at this point. What we do know is that he is currently in that courtroom. We've got a producer there sending reporters down to the courthouse as well, that Michael Cohen is expected to plead guilty to a charge in the Mueller investigation. And as you noted, Bill, the latest crossing the AP, expected to plead guilty to lying to Congress about a Trump real estate project in Russia. And this would, of course, mark the first time that the Office of the Special Counsel has charged Cohen in exchange for pleading guilty and continuing to cooperate with Mueller. He may be obviously hoping to receive a lighter sentence than he otherwise would have.
It'd be a good day to get people like Alan Dershowitz on the air. We'll reach out to him and see what he thinks about this right now as we try and piece together the legal case right now and where this could be headed by the end of the day today, Sandra.
All right. And by the way, we are expecting the president to be departing en route to the G20 summit at the top of the next hour. We were anticipating that he could stop and talk to reporters, answer questions, as he sometimes and often does. This makes 10 o'clock even more important because he may stop and respond to all of this. So we await the president's departure at the top of the hour as well.
Also, we're getting this reaction, too, from the president. We read this tweet about 30 minutes ago. Did you ever see an investigation more in search of a crime, he wrote earlier today? At the same time, Mueller and the angry Democrats Democrats are not even looking at the atrocious and perhaps subversive crimes that were committed by crooked Hillary Clinton and Democrats. A total disgrace. That from earlier.
He also tweeted, when will this illegal Joseph McCarthy-style witch hunt, one that's shattered so many innocent lives, ever end, or will it just go on forever after wasting more than $40 million? Is that possible? It's proven only one thing: there was no collusion with Russia. So ridiculous. Those tweets came out before we learned of this surprise Michael Cohen appearance at a courthouse in Manhattan.
Michael Cohen, age 52. We'll see what comes of that right now inside before that judge, Sandra.
All right. In the meantime, we move on to this, and we'll have a lot more coming up, by the way, in just a few moments on that. To another big story that we're watching at this hour: retiring House Speaker Paul Ryan urging Democrats to get on board and fully fund that border wall as a matter of national security. President Trump says anything less than $5 billion for that wall, for his flagship wall, as he might shut down the government over it. Joining me now, Democratic Congressman Anthony Brown of Maryland. Congressman, first time on the program. Thank you for joining us this morning. Good to have you. So what can you tell us about Democrats' willingness to work with Republicans on this issue?
Look, I don't think it's just a matter of the Democrats' unwillingness to fund the border wall at $5 billion, but Republicans are unable to do that in the Senate. You know, as you know, as has been reported on, the president campaigned on a border wall that would be paid for by the Mexican government. So there's really no appetite for $25 million, let alone $5 billion, I should say, for a border wall. I think Democrats are willing to talk about enhanced border security, whether it's nominal physical barriers, whether it's more human resources on the border, but a $5 billion wall just isn't going to cut it.
But this is the new Congress, and you know, obviously right now there's votes on the leadership of Democrats in the House, and Paul Ryan making the case that this shouldn't be a Republican issue, this shouldn't be a Democrat issue, this should be an American issue. We're talking about border security here. So I just wonder what you are willing to do as a party on border security. Where are you willing to move, as most Americans see something has to be done?
Look, I think in that regard, Speaker Ryan has it right. Border security is an American issue, not just a Democrat or Republican, but so is comprehensive immigration reform. So what we're willing to do is to talk about appropriate levels of border security, looking at comprehensive immigration reform. Who can we let into our country? How does it strengthen our economy? How do we allow for family reunification? How do we maintain that commitment to those who are seeking asylum and refuge in our country? They've done it for centuries. We shouldn't cut that off. So there's a lot going on when we're talking about border security and immigration reform.
And obviously Nancy Pelosi clearing her first major hurdle and becoming House Speaker. A lot of news there. Congressman, we've got a lot of breaking news this morning, as you noted, as we led into you with that. We've got to get back to that. Congressman, please come back. Thank you for being on the program this morning.
Thank you.
All right.
Back to Michael Cohen appearing in Southern at this hour. What this is about is not clear, but some of the reports we're getting right now suggest that he's reached some sort of tentative deal with Bob Mueller. That deal's apparently, according to the AP, was some sort of real estate deal in Russia with the president. So he is before a judge, federal court in Manhattan, where he is expected to enter a guilty plea from his statements to Congress. So that happened in some sort of closed-door testimony about a year ago. Alan Dershowitz by telephone. Sir, good morning to you. We're trying to read between the lines here. What does this tell you, sir? Professor, if you can hear me, it's Bill Hemmer. We're live on TV. Good morning, sir.
Hello?
Yeah, Alan Dershowitz. Hey, you're live on the air. Thanks for the quick work and picking up the phone. I just want to get a sense from you as to what the legal situation might be for Michael Cohen at this hour.
Well, I think the change is that Michael Cohen previously was cooperating with the Southern District of New York, which meant cooperating primarily about Mr. Trump's pre-presidential business activities, which is what the Southern District is looking into. This looks like he's now possibly cooperating with the Mueller report, which raises two questions. Number one, it means the Mueller report is not yet ready to go. It means that they're probably still doing some investigation. They're perhaps trying to fill some blanks because they've lost Manafort as a witness, and of course he is unlikely to be a witness. And the story in The Guardian about members of the administration having contact with Assange seems to be falling apart. So I think they're probably hustling to try to get a new witness who could fill some of those gaps. That's
Okay,
just speculation,
I know what your position is on a special prosecutor. You think it's out of bounds. You, however, have said repeatedly that legally speaking, the Southern District is where the action is. Why?
Well, I've always thought that because as far as Mueller is concerned, all of the allegations are constitutionally protected by the president. The president is entitled to have interactions with foreign countries. If he did, there's no evidence to suggest that he did. And he's certainly entitled to pardon, fire, have impact on the administration of justice. Those are his constitutional powers under Article 2.
I don't know if that continues. Perhaps that has changed significantly because of this news now. But remember, he pled guilty to this campaign finance law back in August. So he pled guilty to a new criminal charge. And you just stated that what that suggests to you is that the Mueller matter is far from over or far from conclusion. But Mueller took the Cohen matter out of the special prosecutor realm in Washington, D.C. and moved it to New York. Why would that be?
Oh, I think because people were questioning his jurisdiction and whether he had gone too far beyond the original mandate if he's looking into anything that's kind of financial. And that's why I think he gave that matter over to the Southern District.
Professor Dershowitz, is there anything that can be determined about Cohen's cooperation and whether this will ultimately lead to other criminal allegations?
You know, we can't be sure. He may be separately sentenced on the two things he pleaded guilty to. We're just not sure. He has good lawyers, and apparently he's still playing ball with the prosecutor, unlike Manafort. So it remains to be seen what information he provides. Remember, he, too, it's hard to use him as a witness because he's had a history of questionable conduct. I think they're going to look to see if they can get from him information that could be corroborated or information that may lead to other self-proving information. That's the way prosecutors usually operate.
Professor Dershowitz, thank you for jumping on the phone with us this morning on this breaking news.
Thank you.
We want to get to Senator Mike Lee. He's standing by. Senator Mike Lee, you've been following every bit of the Mueller investigation through this process. You just heard from Alan Dershowitz. He believes that this indicates that there's no indication right now that the Mueller probe is wrapping anytime soon.
Perhaps there's no indication of that. I hope that it is wrapping soon. This has been going on for the better part of 2 years, and I want him to finish his work, and I think he ought to wrap it up soon.
This changes things, obviously, based on what we're learning right now. The fact that Michael Cohen's expected to plead guilty to making false statements to Congress on the Russia probe. We're waiting to hear more. We understand he is in that courtroom right now. How does this change the way you and your colleagues look at this probe?
I don't think it changes anything about how I look at the probe. I certainly don't think it changes anything about how I look at the Flake-Coons bill that would try to create a de facto fourth branch of government unanswerable to the President of the United States, operating outside of the separation of power system established by our Constitution. I still oppose that. Nothing about that changes. And I don't think anything about this latest development also necessarily indicates that the Mueller probe has to last much longer.
What you ahead of departing for the G20 summit, talking about this investigation, how it's more in search. Have you ever seen one more in search of a crime? It's calling it a total disgrace. This illegal one that shattered so many innocent lives and go on forever. So ridiculous. The president has been tweeting this morning about this. This is the president ahead of us learning the latest on Michael Cohen in that courtroom this morning.
Yeah, so the president made those statements ahead of this happening. I didn't see this coming. I doubt the president did, but still, I don't think this necessarily extends the period of time that Mueller has to run his operation. I think he should be nearing the end of his investigation. I look forward to seeing his report, and I hope he's ready to wrap it up.
And as far as what we are learning here, he's pleading guilty to lying to Congress about work that he did on a Trump real estate deal in Russia. And this comes as the president is about to depart. Top of the hour, Senator Mike Lee. Obviously, we plan to talk about other things, having you on the program this morning. But we could hear from the president at the top of the hour. What would your expectations be as the leader of your party, as the leader of the country, as he is about to go meet with major world leaders? We could hear the president weigh in on this and a lot of other things at the top of the hour.
Yeah, we could hear him weigh in on this. We could also hear him weigh in on other important matters facing the country. I look forward to hearing from him on developments on trade. Look forward to hearing from him also on criminal justice reform, something that the president has proudly championed. As the leader of the Republican Party, he's been behind this effort to get the First Step Act passed by Congress. We need this to pass because it will make the American people safer. It'll make our criminal justice system more effective and more efficient. And I applaud the president's efforts in this area.
All right. Well, I know all of this breaking news is breaking news to you as you jumped onto the program with us. We're going to get back to Alan Dershowitz in just a second. But if I could, Senator Lee, just have you sort of wrap things up here as you and members of Congress get back to work this week, just sort of the mood, the tone on Capitol Hill this morning.
Well, the mood and the tone on Capitol Hill this morning is that there's a lot we want to accomplish between now and the end of this Congress, which expires at exactly noon on January 3rd of 2019. We've got judges to confirm. We've got a criminal justice bill to pass. We've got a government to fund. We look forward to getting it done.
All right. We've got a lot of breaking news this morning. We appreciate your time. Senator Mike Lee, thank you.
Thank you.
This is what we're getting from the Associated Press. Cohen's surprise appearance before that judge, Southern District, Manhattan, around 9 a.m. earlier today, admitted to making false statements in 2017 to a U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intel about a plan to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. Frankly, that is the only line on the Associated Press that's given us a clue as to what this is about. Back to Professor Dershowitz. Good morning again, sir. You made a comment a moment ago about the conflicted statements Michael Cohen has been through over the past year and a half. Do you believe legally he's a good witness, sir?
Well, you know, legally, he's already, now he's admitting to making false statements, so his credibility as a witness diminishes. The question is whether he has information that might contradict what others have said about buildings in Moscow, or whether or not that constitutes any kind of criminal activity. I find that very hard to define. What's happening is the special prosecutor is making all of his cases based on false statements. You know, it's interesting. In other parts of the world, you can't even prosecute people for that. But practically the entire series of indictments grows out of false statements rather than any substantive charges. Because, for example, hypothetically, if they were building buildings or planning to build buildings in Russia, surely that wouldn't be a crime. But lying about it might be a crime. So we're seeing many of these cases being built around false statements.
Mm-hmm. Before the Thanksgiving break, we were told to the White House the president submitted his written answers to Bob Mueller. Could that have an impact on what we're seeing here, or do you believe they're in different silos, sir?
Yes, I think it could. I think, as I said even before the president gave his answers, they're going to comb through every one of his answers and see if they can come up with anybody who can contradict anything the president said. That's why it's called a perjury trap, because even if the president believes what he said was true, if somebody will contradict it, then the president can be charged with lying to government officials, which is, excuse me, the equivalent of perjury. So that's why it's so dangerous for anybody who is the subject of an investigation to answer questions by the prosecution, because the prosecution then combs through evidence, tries to get evidence that they can then use to show contradiction.
Mm-hmm. What is your reaction to the report of yesterday that Kevin Downing, the attorney for Paul Manafort, has been in contact with Rudy Giuliani, representing the president clearly, and for lack of a better
nothing
phrase,
wrong with that from the president's point of view. Any good lawyer tries to reach out to witnesses. Side, perfectly legitimate to do it. In fact, it's illegal for a prosecutor to say to one of his witnesses that you can't talk to lawyers for the other side. The question is, was it smart for Manafort and his lawyer to do that? And maybe not so smart, because look what happened. The plea deal imploded, and now he's going to get sentenced even more harshly than he would have had he made no deal.
Yeah. My question was not based on something that was done illegally. If you're a lawyer, you want to gather as much information as possible. If I were Rudy Giuliani, I'd want to talk with Kevin Downing and find out what Mueller's asking and what questions he has, sir.
And that's entirely legitimate. In fact, it's almost mandatory. Any good lawyer should do anything he can that's ethical and legal to try to find out as much as possible about the case that's being built against his client.
You mentioned the perjury trap, sir. Do you think that all of these cases are based on that? Meaning,
I think a lot of them are. I think the weakness of Mueller's substantive findings are suggested by the fact that he has to resort to false statement prosecutions, which really shows that he didn't start with very much, that the very fact that he's conducting an investigation has created these crimes. These are not crimes that had been committed prior to his appointment. They're crimes that were committed as the result of his appointment. And that, raises some questions about the role of special prosecutors in creating crimes or creating opportunities for crimes to be committed. In the end, I don't think Mueller's going to come up with very much in terms of criminal conduct that existed before he was appointed. And that's quite shocking.
Yeah, well, that's a very low legal bar. For example, I ask you about a date and you get the date wrong. I ask you about an email, you get the email wrong. That would be under the definition perjury.
Yeah. Well, technically, it has to be willful and knowing and deliberate. But that puts the burden really on the defendant to show that he made a mistake rather than lied. And that's sometimes hard to do.
Sir, stand by. Thank you very much, Professor Alan Dershowitz, by telephone. Back with more on Sandra.
Rick Leventhal is outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan right now, where Michael Cohen's expected to plead guilty to misleading Congress about the Russia probe. What more are we learning outside the courthouse there, Rick?
Well, we're learning apparently that this hearing is now over. What I'm told, and what the Associated Press is reporting, is that this was in regard to false statements that Michael Cohen now admits he made to the Senate Select Intelligence Committee that was investigating the potential collusion with Russia, and also this issue of the president, back when he was not the president, trying to cut a deal to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. We just got down here to the courthouse. You can see a lot of crews out front. And we had a producer in the courtroom, Tamara Gitt, who just came running out of the courtroom. And Tamara, I know you don't like to normally do this, but please just come in here for a second. We want to hear what happened in the courtroom and what Michael Cohen had to say in the courtroom.
Absolutely. So Michael came in a little after 9 with his attorney, Guy Petrillo. He looked to be in a good mood. He was smiling. He was even talking to the government attorneys and smiling and talking to his attorneys. And he pled guilty to one count of providing false statements to this special counsel. He said he fully understood what he was doing. He was waiving his right to an indictment by a grand jury, but he pled guilty to the one count.
And his demeanor was happy.
I would say, yeah, he was calm. He was smiling. He recognized some of us in the press, smiled at me in the jury box because he's seen me before. And he seemed to be in a calm mood. There was no family there. He was alone just with his 2 attorneys.
And what did the judge say at the conclusion?
The judge agreed that he seemed alert and conscious and knew what he was doing. He did not send a sentencing date for this, but there is a sentencing date in the Southern District for December 12th. And right now, Cohen's attorneys are asking that they keep the date December 12th, consolidate both cases into one. So he may be sentenced for both on the 12th. They're going to submit a letter later today.
All right. Thanks very much, Tamara. So, again, this has nothing to do with the charges that Michael Cohen pled guilty to back in August, which involved bank fraud and tax crimes related to his taxi business, and then those payments made to Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, allegedly to help protect the president as he was running back in 2016 for office. So Cohen pled guilty to those charges in August, and as Tamara said, he's scheduled to be sentenced on those charges in 2 weeks, Bill and Sandra. So now this charge potentially gets added to those charges, and who knows where the Mueller investigation is going. This is the first charge from the Mueller team. Those other charges are unrelated, but now they're wrapping them all together, potentially.
So, Rick, he pled guilty to one count, making false statements to the special counsel, and you're updating us that the hearing is now over, because the last we were hearing it was still ongoing at that point. One of the prosecutors working with Robert Mueller was present in the courtroom. The AP is also reporting. Anything else you can tell us?
Well, the one charge he pled guilty to, and my understanding was testimony to the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. That was back in 2017 regarding the plans by the Trump team to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. He made false statements to the Senate on that topic. So that was the charge that he pled guilty to today. The other charges, of course, were related to other issues back in August, and those are the charges he was scheduled to be sentenced on 2 weeks from now. He also apparently sat down for hours and hours of interviews with Mueller investigators up until this point, and those interviews are said to be potentially damaging to President Trump, according to ABC News, which tweeted about that a short time ago. So there's a lot happening here, and we're keeping up.
I see a big crowd there behind you, Rick. Have you gotten any indication that Michael Cohen's left the building?
Has Michael Cohen left the building? Do we know? We haven't seen him yet. There's always a possibility he'll come out and speak. There's also a possibility that his defense attorney would speak. I'd say it's probably unlikely that prosecutors will talk to us. But, you know, these guys will be here no matter what to get the exit of anyone involved in this case. So, you know, we'll be here, too.
So, and anything you can give us as far as dates and next court appearances, the next time we would see and hear from Michael Cohen? I know that the producer that was in the courtroom just gave us an update on that. What was that?
Well, we were already prepared to be back down here at the courthouse next door because Michael Cohen is scheduled to be sentenced on those other charges that he pled guilty to back in August. Those were the charges for bank fraud and tax fraud related to his taxi business, and then the charges related to illegal campaign contributions from the Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal payments. Now, that's supposed to happen on December 12th. He's supposed to be sentenced on those charges on the 12th. And now he has this new charge that apparently prosecutors are hoping to wrap into those other charges potentially. And then there's the whole question of whether or not the president might actually step in and try to pardon Michael Cohen. That hasn't even come up yet, but, you know, we don't know, obviously, whether that's even in discussions. But what we do know is that Cohen pled guilty today to a fresh charge, the first charge from the Mueller team regarding this false testimony that he admitted to giving to the Senate committee back in 2017.
All right. Rick Leventhal, stand by, obviously, for any more news that can come out of the courthouse there, as we await the president, by the way, who could speak at the top of the hour. Thank you, Rick.
I have spoken to Michael Cohen several times over the past year and a half, and I can tell you that he was concerned about his family and his future and his children and himself, frankly. One of the more direct conversations I had with him, he relayed to me the following question, Sandra. What's the charge? What's the crime? They won't tell me. Another conversation I had with him just a few weeks ago, he seemed to be very halting in his speech. He was very concerned about the appearance on December 12th for the sentencing that now may or may not happen based on this appearance today. But it was clear to me in his voice that he was trying to figure out his own future. And now with his statement about the Trump Tower in Moscow that was given to the Select Committee in Washington, D.C., who knows what the context of that was? You know, was there an effort during the campaign of 2016? Was it a simple fib on the side, or was it something much greater than that? Those details we frankly do not have. Alan Dershowitz, we've got back on the telephone, sir, and you've had time to go for a little more information thus far. What do you think today was all about, sir?
Well, first of all, I think that it's unlikely that Michael Cohen gets a pardon because he's already provided the information that's allegedly damaging to the president. And if the president were to pardon him, it would only make that information more compelling in front of a jury or in front of the court of public opinion. So I think Michael Cohen has made his deal. He's now completely on board with prosecutors in the Southern District and prosecutors in the Mueller Commission. He's relying on them to get a good deal, perhaps no jail time or short amount of jail time. And, you know, he's made his deal. Unlike Manafort, he is playing only one side of the game, and that's the